This is Frank Fantini. We're here now with James Maida, who is the founder and CEO of Gaming Laboratories International, which everybody knows as GLI. And there's two things we always say about James. One is that his business has almost invented an industry, and it's become its own noun, its own synonym. People say, well, you know, have you got GLI approval yet? Or a new company will say, we're ready to go because our products are GLI approved. The other thing we say about James is that from his perspective, serving the entire gaming technology industry, he has an eye on the trends of the industry in an unbiased way that operators and suppliers can't have. And so we're going to take advantage of that knowledge, James.
No worries.
Both of them. Tell us a little bit about, for those who don't know, and I can't imagine that's not anybody listening here, a little bit about GLI and maybe some of the things that you've done in the past year.
So GLI, was started in 1989, and we can talk a lot about history, but we were really the first independent gaming test laboratory anywhere in the world, and we saw an opportunity where we did not want, or the industry did not want, every state and every tribe and every jurisdiction around the world to have their own lab, because that would have required multiple resubmissions of equipment multiple times, and it would have been very chaotic for the industry to try to get anything across the line. So GLI was invented essentially as a clearinghouse for approvals globally. And today, we serve more than 455 jurisdictions. GLI is in every jurisdiction that uses private labs, and there's not many jurisdictions left that don't use private labs, so we're real proud of that fact. I think the other fact is that around the world, people have a lot of choice in labs, but more than 300 of those jurisdictions use GLI exclusively because they just want the best testing and the highest quality product. But with that is lots of responsibility, and part of what we have tried to do over the last couple of years, and it really started a year and a half ago now, is make sure that we have enough staff to service all the requests. So in the last 12 months, we've added approximately 228 new jobs above and beyond what we had. Our company sits about 880 employees today, which is 3 to 4 times the size of any other test lab. All of the test labs combined are not even a third of our employee base. And so we're trying to test product. We get 1,000 submissions a week, that we're working on, and 1,000 transfers. And we have to have people spread out geographically. The equipment has to be spread out geographically so that we can make sure that we get everything to market. And things are getting to market quicker today than they've ever been. We've reduced turnaround times by 20% across the industry. So we're really proud of seeing that the industry was going to come out of this merger cycle, and the industry now is starting to really submit a lot of product, and you're going to see it on the show floor tomorrow. And ahead of that, we knew that we had to hire and make sure that people can get products to market. The other thing that we've done was invested in our Australian operation. We're now the largest test lab in Australia, a larger Sydney operation, a larger Adelaide operation. And here in the United States and Canada, we continue to add people. We've added to our African facilities, we added to our European facilities. So we're just really doing a global hiring push, which just completed last week. We have everybody in place now, and now it's time to move forward.
So when we say gaming global laboratories international, it really is international.
It is international. 20 locations around the world. Unfortunately, I don't get to all 20 each year. So hopefully some of the people that work for us will get to see this video.
All from Lakewood, New Jersey.
Started in Toms River, New Jersey, and moved up the road to Lakewood.
Right. Home of the Lakewood Blue Claws.
That's right, minor league baseball team. You're exactly right. You must go to games.
I follow the Phillies a little bit.
Okay.
James, as you've alluded to, this industry has changed dramatically. It just changes. Right. It seems like every day it changes faster than the day before. What are some of the big changes that you see in the industry now that you have to deal with?
I think the biggest change that we see in the industry right now is system-centric gaming, right? So it used to be all about the games and the slot machines, but now everything has to be hooked to a system. And with that system comes security concerns, hacking and ways of people intruding systems. So we've now branched in the last year, started a professional services practice where we could talk about cybersecurity and talk about penetration testing and talk about all these things that, whether it's a casino operator, a casino supplier, or a tribal gaming commission, they need these more IT services and professional services. And we've done several acquisitions in this space, and we see that part of the business growing. Also, we see, obviously, the convergence of social gaming, online gaming, slot machines, and lottery, and that's what you saw with the mergers over the last year.
One of the things that we see with this convergence of technology is we also see disruptive new games coming mainly from the online world.
Right.
A couple years ago, nobody ever heard of daily fantasy sports.
Right.
We saw the other day where FanDuel purchased a small company for esports, which is even newer and growing even faster than daily fantasy sports. And the company it purchased was one of the pioneers in that space. It started in February.
Right, right.
From your perspective, tell us a little bit about interactive and daily fantasy and these whole new ways of gaming. You mentioned social that just were not on people's radar
I
screens.
think really, you talk about disruptive, right? And you look at Uber, which completely disrupted the taxi industry. I think people around the world are doing and asking for forgiveness rather than asking for approval ahead of time. So the regulators over the last couple of years are running a bit behind, whether it's binary options, which is a new way of gambling on the stock market without actually buying the stocks and bonds. You talked about daily fantasy sports, which is a way of actually, fast gaming on a Sunday, and it's a daily game, and whether it's gambling or not, right? So all of these types of technologies are being rushed into the market, and if the regulator doesn't say anything, it's just moving forward. Right. Just like Uber took over the ride-sharing program, and by the time everybody recovered and said, hey, this looks like it's going to put our taxi cabs out of business, it was already too late. And now they've resorted to have to regulate it rather than looking about whether they should allow it or not.
One of the things that has always been true about the internet is it empowers the user.
Right.
You no longer need that big, powerful official up there, whether it's a guy setting the line for a sports book, because now we can have exchange wagering and you and I can decide what to bet.
Right.
Daily fantasy sports, we now see esports doing the same thing. And as you say, this kind of puts the regulators behind. How are will the regulators ever catch up? And I guess another way of addressing this is this probably creates an entirely new opportunity for GLI.
Well, I think it's not that the regulators are behind because they want to be behind. To regulate something, you need a statutory framework. And if there's no statutory framework, you cannot regulate where there's no statutory framework. And legislatures can't move as fast as what we're seeing with this new technology. So it does. Because I think when people rush into the market with this new equipment, I think, Frank, they want to make sure it's right and it's fair and people aren't being cheated, and because they know that if it goes very badly, right? A little bit about this VW thing where they put fake software into cars so they would pass tests, the emissions tests. They don't want this to happen in the gaming industry, because if it does, then somebody gets a black eye and then everybody wants to take a look at it. So there's this sort of idea of regulation, almost voluntary regulation, while they're waiting for the regulators to get the statutory empowerment, so then the regulator can actually do things like start the regulatory framework and the regulatory process. We're
going to be talking with Jeff Freeman from the AGA later today, and I know Jeff's got this task force studying sports betting and related issues, probably to a great extent for that very purpose.
And Jeff's also looking at things like illegal gaming and illegal sweepstakes, and whether or not daily fantasy is legal or not. The AGA does not want unlicensed, unregulated gaming, because it actually winds up disrupting what the AGA's charter is all about. So I think it'll be interesting to hear what Mr. Freeman says later today.
One of the buzzwords of this show is going to be skill-based gaming. What's your take on that?
Well, we've always had skill-based gaming. Skill-based gaming was written into compacts as early as 1990. Now these are sort of like Space Invaders kinds of skill-based gaming where I play against you. I don't know that it's a panacea where it's just going to open tons of revenue right off the bat. I think it's something that's encouraged, and I think what we should look at skill-based gaming is the regulators now want to work with the industry to provide a new outlet for new types of games. Whether or not we'll have hundreds of these games or whether it's going to be a slow start, it actually shows us where we can regulate, we can make it easier for suppliers to get those kinds of things to market. I'm really excited about it because it does open up new testing opportunities for us. But I don't think that tomorrow you're going to see 30 new skill-based games dropped off at the lab. I think it's a long, thoughtful process, and we have to make sure that people actually want to play it, and it doesn't take too long to play, and that all people are treated roughly fairly during the skill process.
Yeah, skill-based has such a huge continuum of possibilities. I mean,
it could be everything from video poker down to me playing Space Invaders or Pac-Man against you, and everything in between, right?
Right, pinball is a skill-based game.
That's right, or throwing basketballs into a hoop.
And you also have the virtual reality and the Mortal Kombat kind of skill-based, and can that degree of interaction be brought to a casino floor?
I think from a technologies, it can. From a regulatory process, I think it can. The real question is are the players going to want to play it, and how much of it? Server-based gaming does not take up our entire floors today, even though that was pitched in the mid-2000s. So I think it's going to be a niche market to start, but it's going to bring in those people who want to touch and play it and feel it and have a great time with it. But I don't think it just chaotically takes over the whole floor.
Okay. Any other issues we should touch upon this morning?
No, I think you touched upon the disruption in gaming and the pace of new technologies being created within a regulatory vacuum. I think that's the #1 issue for regulators in the next 12 months.
Okay, very insightful, very interesting.
Well, thank you, Frank, for having me today. I appreciate it.